Hello, I'm Yechuan Peng from Intelligent Big Data Visualization Lab, Tongji University. I'll be presenting our work From Touch to Change, Understanding Public Engagement in Data Physicalization for Social Good. This work is in collaboration with Ruanxi Wu, Professor Nan Chao, and Professor Yang Shi. Data physicalization represents data through physical artifacts that people can see, touch, and explore. Because of its tangible and embodied qualities, researchers and practitioners increasingly explore data physicalization as a vehicle for broader societal goals, including social good. We consider this kind of physicalization as data physicalization for social good, Phys for good, which engages societal issues and mobilizes pathways for collective change. Achieving these goals requires extending engagement from the individual to the public level, commonly referred to as public engagement. The collective involvement of people in addressing issues of shared concerns, such as environmental protection and public health. A representative example is Chemicals in the Creek, where community members and an environmental organization transformed water permit violation data into floating lanterns on the Chelsea Creek. Developed through participatory and performative methods, the project fostered collective ownership of the data and created a shared public experience that raised awareness, stimulated dialogue, and pressured companies to report violations more transparently. In the visualization community, public engagement is frequently invoked as a motivating rationale or expected outcome of data physicalization. However, public engagement has not been systematically investigated as an explicit design objective for data physicalizations. This gap leads to two key challenges. First, the characteristics of public engagement in Phys for good remain unclear, making it difficult to articulate its mechanisms or distinguish it from related concepts. Second, actionable guidance for designing such engagement is still limited, making it challenging for designers to create physicalizations that sustain engagement and generate social impact. To address this gap, we developed a design space that characterizes public engagement in Phys for good through three facets: stage, encounter, and impact. We first built and analyzed a corpus of 45 projects, then interviewed 8 designers to identify recurring challenges and strategies, and finally evaluated the framework through a case study. In short, we moved from characterizing engagement to supporting design. We started with a corpus analysis to understand public engagement in existing Phys for good projects. This part addresses two questions: what counts as Phys for good public engagement, and how did we collect and code the projects? We first clarified two key concepts. Phys for good refers to data physicalization for social good, and public engagement emphasizes the public's active role in shaping, interpreting, and applying socially relevant issues, rather than simply observing as passive viewers. These definitions guided our corpus construction. We then coded 45 Phys for good projects using a combined top-down and bottom-up approach. Starting from a 3-act storytelling structure, we refined the framework from setup, confrontation, and resolution into stage, encounter, and impact, so that it better fits engagement as an evolving process rather than a conflict narrative. From this analysis, we derived a hierarchical design space. At the top level, it includes 3 facets: stage, encounter, and impact. Stage describes the conditions for engagement, encounter describes how participation unfolds, and impact reflects what engagement leads to. Together, they provide a structured lens for analyzing and designing public engagement in Phys for good. The first level is stage. Focuses on the contextual setup of engagement: what issue is being addressed, who is being engaged, and where engagement takes place. These dimensions matter because they determine whether engagement feels relevant, situated, and meaningful in the first place. The second level is encounter, where engagement shifts from setup to participation. Here, engagement is not treated as a single interaction, but as a process unfolding across data collection, design, and presentation. This level captures how people contribute data, shape the physicalization, and interact with it over time. The third level is impact, which captures what participation may lead to in cognitive, behavioral, and social terms. We grouped the 8 impact types into top-down, bottom-up, and bidirectional categories, based on the direction of information and knowledge flow between organizers and the public. Using this design space, we summarized the corpus at 3 levels. At the stage level, projects mainly focus on social and environmental issues and often target the general public. At the encounter level, participation is usually active, community-based, and task-driven. At the impact level, top-down effects are the most common, while bidirectional impacts appear less often. Beyond these distributions, we also identified patterns and missing choices. Many projects favor active contribution, constructive participation, and top-down impact. In contrast, encoding participation, modify and take away behaviors, and stronger bidirectional impacts are relatively rare. This suggests that current Phys for Good projects often invite people to contribute, but less often support them in shaping the representation or co-creating meaning. To move from characterization to design, we then interviewed 8 designers whose projects were included in the corpus. Through semi-structured interviews and thematic analysis, we examined how they designed for public engagement, what challenges they encountered, and what strategies they used in practice. From these interviews, we identified 3 core challenges. The first is attracting attention in open contexts. The second is encouraging public contribution. And the third is cultivating ongoing responsibility. Importantly, these challenges show that engagement is not a single act, but a progression from initial attention to sustained involvement. To address these challenges, we identified 18 design strategies organized into 5 categories: fostering collective connection, lowering barriers to participation, boosting motivation, employing public-friendly design, and addressing public concerns. These strategies turn designer experience into more actionable guidance for Phys for Good practice. Fostering collective connection strengthens the link between personal experience and public issues so that audiences perceive the data as relevant to their own lives. Designers achieve this by keeping data people-related, using individual stories or examples to evoke empathy, and triggering questioning or dialogue that connects personal perspectives with broader social discussions. Leveraging existing social ties further helps build trust and encourages participation. Lowering the barriers to participation reduces practical and psychological obstacles so that people with limited time or diverse backgrounds can easily participate. Designers simplify participation processes, guide audiences through progressive engagement from simple to complex tasks, and facilitate onboarding through instructions or facilitators. Inclusive design practices further ensure that the experience remains accessible to diverse communities. Boosting motivation for engagement increases the likelihood that audiences not only stop but also remain actively involved. Designers often introduce playfulness and artistic interaction to make complex or heavy topics more approachable. Social or competitive elements and visible rewards further stimulate curiosity, sustain engagement, and reinforce a sense of achievement. Employing public-friendly design focuses on designing installations that function effectively and comfortably in open public environments. Designers enhance safety and durability for crowded settings and use approachable materials that feel familiar and inviting. Human-scale comparisons help audiences relate abstract data to everyday experience, while takeaway memories extend the impact of the installation beyond the moment of interaction. Addressing public concerns ensures that participants feel psychologically safe and fairly represented when engaging with the installation. Designers protect privacy and anonymity to reduce discomfort around sensitive topics. They also maintain equality in representation and acknowledge potential biases or limitations in the data to avoid misrepresentation and maintain public trust. We then evaluated the practical value of the framework through a case study with 2 designers. In a 90-minute workshop, they first examined their original prototype through the design space and challenges, and then developed redesign proposals using the design space and strategies. This process led to 3 additional public engagement mechanisms, and more importantly, shifted their thinking from designing an artifact to designing what people would do together around it. For the discussion section first, we examine the relationship between public engagement and Phys for Good. Second, we argue that engagement should be understood as more than present because it unfolds over time. Third, we argue that it is more than public because Phys for Good involves multiple stakeholders rather than one uniform public. To conclude, our work contributes a corpus, a design space, and an evaluation. Together, they provide both a conceptual lens and practical guidance for designing public engagement in Phys for Good. That ends my presentation. Thank you for your attention. We encourage you to visit our website to check the design space in detail.